Hi guys, my name is Travis. This is my wife Morgan and my son Chandler.
And you're watching Sunday service at the River Church.
Let's do this!
Good morning, everybody. It's me, Joel. I'm reporting live from my garage. Happy Father's Day. Thank you guys so much for watching the River Sunday service today. We want to encourage you to relax, enjoy the service, worship with us this morning. If this is your first time watching one of our services online, definitely fill out a digital communication card so that we can get to know you better. And if you've got kids, we have resources online at our website, theriverdfw.com, including a spot where if you like to worship by giving with your tithes and offerings, you can do that at the website as well. But today is a special day, and we're excited that you're watching and worshiping with us. Before our service begins today, I want to tell you about a really exciting opportunity coming up. Many of you guys have been asking, hey, when are we going to get back in the school? And we've had conversations with the district, and we're potentially looking at August. But in the meantime, we want to have a worship night. So we're inviting everyone June 28th at 7 p.m. at the Cap Smith Park Amphitheater to come out, and we're going to worship together. Listen, we're recommending safe social distancing. We're going to have sanitizing stations, but we want you to know that everyone is welcome, and we're going to have a great night of worship. So definitely come out and check that out. As we kind of transition to the next part of this service where we're going to spend some time in worship and then hear a message from Pastor Mike, we just want to turn our hearts to God. We want to challenge you to really listen to his voice this morning. And today's going to be a wonderful day, so let's worship.
Jesus, we love you. How we love
Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you. Be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you. Be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen. 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 Oh, we sing amen. 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 Yeah. Ooh. Amen. Amen. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children. May his presence go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you and within you. He is with you. He is with you in the morning, in the evening, and you're coming and you're going and you're weeping and rejoicing. He is for you. He is for you. Thank you, Jesus. Oh, you are for us. And we sing amen. 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 Let's sing amen. 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 The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace.
What's up, River Church, and welcome to another edition of Summer at the River. Wouldn't be summer without a trip to the lake. Well, good morning, River Church, and happy Father's Day. Today is Father's Day at the River. Hey, by the way, there's several new fathers at our church who are celebrating their first Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to you. Congratulations. I hope it's been an awesome one. And you know, whether you are a father, whether you are watching this maybe with your father or a stepfather or a grandfather, spiritual father, whatever that looks like for you, there are men in our lives, hopefully, who have been father figures to us, who have loved us, who have impacted us, who have made us who we are. And so we want to celebrate them and love them, honor them today. You know, it's days like Father's Day and Mother's Day. Those are often days that send me personally kind of into a little bit of a reflection time. And I've been thinking a lot about the things that we as fathers pass down to our kids, really the legacy that we leave, or maybe you just would like to say what it is that we're remembered for, right? So I've been thinking a lot about what we're going to be remembered for, what we're going to pass down, the legacies that we leave this world, our families, our kids. And I would say that this isn't just something for fathers or dads to consider. I think this is a pretty good thought experiment for anyone, right? What's the legacy you're going to leave in this world? What are you going to pass down? Like, is it integrity and morals? Is it hobbies? Do you like to fish, and or maybe it's golf, love of outdoors? I don't know, stamp collecting, right? I don't know what your hobbies are, but maybe you wanna share those with the people that you love and have them have memories of doing those things with you, enjoying those times together as a family or friends. Maybe you want to be a really good steward of your finances, and so you want to pass down an inheritance to your kids, right, or to those who come after you. Maybe it's love, right? You want to be known for love. You want your family and your kids, when they think of you, to think about how much you loved them and cherished them. Maybe it's a sense of adventure, right? Most nights before we put our kids down to sleep, we'll pray with them, and there's a prayer that I often pray for them, and there's several things in it. One is I pray that they would have God's favor and blessing on their life. I pray that they would get saved as soon as they possibly can. I pray that their heart would always chase after the same things that God's heart chases after. And then I always finish that prayer with that, asking that God would let their lives be a life filled with adventure, right? And so maybe it's adventure. Maybe you want to pass that down to your kids, right? But these are all things, ideas. They're good things that we want to pass down to our families, our kids, want to be remembered for. But as I've been processing this and thinking about it, what is not just good, but what is maybe the most important thing that we want to pass down from generation to generation? What's the most important legacy that we could leave? And as I'm thinking about that question, I really think you have to ask a follow-up question to that, because the question that follows that is, if you're talking about what's the most important thing you could leave, the next question is, well, what lasts? What doesn't just last from one generation to the next, but what would be an eternal legacy? And when I think of that, the answer that comes to my mind is a legacy of faith. And I know that your kids and your relationships, the people around you, they don't get faith by osmosis. Like just because they're around you doesn't mean they inherit your faith, right? That's not what I'm saying. But as a dad, as a man, there are what I want is for the people around me to remember me for my faith. I want them to remember me for being a man who loved God, who cherished God, who chased after God, and I want to leave a legacy of faith. Hebrews 11 and 12 talks a lot about the faith of those who have gone before us. It talks a lot about the faith of our really forefathers and the men and women who came before us, and how their faith today even helps us. It encourages us. It reminds us of things that are possible. And so I'm thinking about that, and I'm asking the question, what does that look like for a father right now, today? What does that look like for me today? And not just for a father, but for anyone who might be watching this today. What does that look like for you, leaving a legacy of faith? And so, oddly enough, when I started thinking about that and asking that question, it kind of brought to mind a story of faith. And it's one you find in Mark 6 or Matthew 14. And I'm going to read the version from Matthew 14, 23 through 33. It says, "Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat," he being Jesus, made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. And after dismissing the crowds, he went up on a mountain by himself to pray, and well into the night he was there alone. Meanwhile, the boat was already some distance from the land, battered by the waves because the wind was against them. Jesus came towards them walking on the sea very early in the morning, And when the disciples saw him on the sea, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. Immediately, Jesus spoke to them. "Have courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it is you," Peter answered him, "command me to come to you on the water." And he said, "Come." Jesus said, "Come on, Peter." And climbing out of the boat, Peter started walking on water and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the strength of the wind, he was afraid and began to sink, and he cried out, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus reached out his hand, caught hold of him, and said to him, "You of little faith, why do you doubt?" When they got in the boat, the wind ceased, and then those in the boat worshipped him and said, "Truly, you are the Son of God." So here's the breakdown for what we just read, right? Jesus sends the disciples away. He's like, "You guys go over there. I'm going to go pray." And then as he sees them, they're struggling because the winds and the waves are coming up against the boat. So he walks out on the water to them. They see him. They think he's a ghost or something, so they get scared. He says, "Guys, relax. It's me. It's Jesus." Peter, seeing what Jesus is doing, is like, "I want to do that. I want to be like Jesus. Command me to come out of the boat." So Jesus says, "All right, Peter, come on, let's do this. Come on out." Peter gets out of the boat, and for a moment, he's walking on water. And we don't know how long he was walking on water. We don't know how far he got, but he was doing it, right? He was walking on water, and then he gets distracted by the winds, the waves. He gets scared. He loses faith. He sinks. He cries out for help. Jesus reaches out, grabs him, and if Jesus is close enough to grab him, he must have been Peter probably made it pretty far, right? Jesus grabs him and he says, "Peter," right? He uses this as a teaching moment. "Peter, why do you have such little faith," right? "Why didn't you believe, Peter?" The disciples see all of this. It really reveals them a little bit more about who Jesus is, and then they just worship Jesus, right? Now, hearing this story, this isn't like a 5-point or 10-point sermon on or story on here's how you should leave a legacy of faith. But I think there is so much that we can learn here watching Jesus, looking at Jesus and how he teaches the disciples here, how he interacts with the disciples here, how he lives in front of the disciples here. And I think we can take some of these ideas and apply them to how we live around the people that we love, fathers, our kids, moms, our kids, our grandkids, and how we can live in front of them and lead them to see Jesus in our lives, and how hopefully one day they can have a legacy of faith. So the first thing we see in this story is the disciples learn faith by watching Jesus live, right? So think about this. In this story alone, they see Jesus praying, right? He tells them, "Hey, you guys go over there. I'm going to pray." They see him walking on water. They see him and hear him, experience him calming them in fear. They see him catch Peter when Peter's falling. Everything in this story that takes place is Jesus teaching them who he is, revealing himself to them simply by showing them his life, right? Just by the way he was living, right? There's no sit down like, "Hey guys, let's sit in a circle and let me teach you a lesson." There's no, 5-point sermon, right? Although there is a time and place for both of those things, right? But that's not what's happening here, right? He just says, "Hey guys, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to pray." The disciples watch that. They learn from that. They see him walk on water and they're going, "Wow, there's something amazingly special about this guy," right? They see that. They learn from that. They see him catch Peter, save Peter. They see that. They learn faith from that. So here's my point to all of our dads out there, our moms, even anyone who wants to influence their loved ones today. They need to see your faith lived out in your life, right? And you're thinking, "Well, Mike, but my faith is private," right? No, it's not. Not if you have kids, not if you have a family, right? There's nothing private about that, right? They see your life. Like, come on, I have kids. If you have kids, you know this. I haven't gone to the bathroom by myself since like 2015, okay? So their faith, while although a very private thing, is also something that is lived out publicly, especially in front of the people who are closest to us. And so if they're close to you, they need to see your faith, right? They need to see you be like Peter and choosing to chase Jesus over comfort, right? Like getting out of that boat and onto the water for Peter was scary, but he did it, right? Why? Because he wanted to chase Jesus. He wanted to know Jesus. He wanted to experience Jesus, right? Your kids, your family, your friends, the people closest to you, they need to see you get out of the boat. They need to see you experience Jesus, take risks for Jesus. Why? Because he called you to it, right? If he's calling you to do something, if he's calling you to take a certain risk, you need to do it and do it in front of them so that they can see what? See that you trust Jesus, that you're willing to follow Jesus. They need to see you love Jesus. They need to see you worship Jesus, even in church, right? They need to see you worshiping Jesus, raising your hands, praising his name. They need to see you reading your Bible. They need to see you praying, right? There's a lot of moments or a lot of mornings I come out of the bedroom and the kids are playing or eating breakfast or just hanging out in the living room, and there's Katie and she's sitting on the couch and she's reading her Bible and she's journaling, right? And they see that, right? There's no words that need to be said, right? She doesn't need to come in and go, children, I am reading my Bible. I am now journaling. Learn, children. No, right? Like they just, she's not announcing it. They see it. They see what she's doing. They learn faith by watching her life. That's what it needs to look like, right? They need to see us put Jesus over everything, right? And here's one that might scare you a little bit. Guys, your kids need to see you tithe. You go, what? Tithe? Yeah, because they need to know and see and understand that Jesus is the ruler of your finances, that Jesus is the king of your finances, and that you trust that he's in control of your money, that you trust that he will provide for your well-being and your needs. And when your kids see you do that, when they see you trust Jesus with your money, that's going to teach them faith. That's going to teach them that they too can trust Jesus over their finances, that he'll take care of them too. Fathers and husbands today, your kids need to see you love and be good to their mom. They need to see you treat her like Jesus would. And I would say this even goes doubly for someone who's out there who's watching and maybe you're separated or you're divorced. Your kids need to see how you treat that person who maybe you're at odds with on some things, who maybe, there's a reason why you're no longer together. Your kids need to see you treat them with kindness, dignity, respect. They need to see you treat that person like Christ would. They need to see your faith. They need to see you serve. They need to see you in a community group, in a small group. They maybe even lead a community group in a small group. River Church, husbands, fathers, everyone out there, right? Your loved ones, your kids, they need to see your faith. All right, so number 2, if you want to leave a legacy of faith, your kids and your loved ones need to hear you talk about your faith, but they also need to hear you talk to them about their faith, right? What does Jesus do when he catches Peter? He says, Peter, you have little faith. Why did you doubt, right? What's Peter doing? He's using this moment, or what's Jesus doing? He's using this moment with Peter as a teaching moment, right? I think, I can't say this for sure, but I'm pretty sure that when Peter asked Jesus, like, hey, can I get out of the boat? Can I come to you? And Jesus says, come on, Peter. I think Jesus probably knows that Peter's going to fall, right? But what does he do? He still tells him, he says, come on, get out of the boat. Let's go, Peter, right? I think that he's going to take this and use this moment as a teaching moment for Peter to talk to him about his faith, to teach him about his faith, to grow his faith. And I think, we need to look for moments like that with our kids, with our loved ones, our family members, right? Moments where we can go, come on, get out of the boat, give it a try, take a risk. take this step. And you know what? Maybe they fail, right? Maybe they get out and they fall and it doesn't work out. But what if they don't? Or better yet, what if they take that step, you use it as a teaching moment, you talk to them about their faith, you teach them about Jesus, and then the next time they make it. The next time they walk across that lake, they walk across that sea and get all the way to Jesus. Like, how cool would that be, right? And so we got to look for moments to talk to our loved ones, our kids about Jesus, right? It has to be something that we're on the lookout for constantly, right? And just as important as talking to them about their faith is talking to them about your faith, right? Our homes need to be a space where talking about Jesus and talking about our faith is normal and comfortable, where it's a safe place to come and talk about your faith. Like maybe it's a place where you talk to them, your kids, your loved ones, about times that you've had doubt. Maybe it's a time that you talk to them about moments where Jesus caught you. You were falling in the winds and the waves and he caught you. Or maybe a time when you were afraid and Jesus said, have courage, I'm here. Like, I'm here, have courage. Or maybe this is an opportunity for you to talk to them about times that, like Peter, you failed. Right? You tried to get out of the boat, you tried to walk to Jesus, and you looked around and you saw the winds and the waves. You got scared, you got overwhelmed, and you failed. And yet, Jesus was still faithful. You need to talk to your kids and your loved ones about times that you failed, specifically in your faith. They need to know about your experience of failure. Why? Because they're going to fail. And they need to know that you can come back from it, that God welcomes you back. Like, why do we love the story of the prodigal son, right? Why do we love the story about this son who abandons his father, he leaves his father, he takes his inheritance, he goes and ruins it, and he wastes it, and then he comes crawling back to his father only to be embraced, welcomed home like a son who had never left. Like, why do we love that story? Because it's a story about redemption. It's a story about reconciliation. It's a story about unconditional love, right? Like, that's why we love that story. And you need to tell your family, you need to tell your kids about moments in your life where you experience that redemption, about moments in your life where you experience that unconditional love, that reconciliation. You need to talk about it openly. It needs to be a dialogue that's happening in your home. But not just the tough times or the bad times or the times you failed. You need to talk about the great times, the blessings that God has given you, that he's poured out on you. You need to talk about, man, that God is good and kind and loving and generous, about like when he blesses your family, you just say, this is from God. He gave this to us. He was generous to us. Like our home, you go, this is from God, right? The job, this is from God. The favor, this is from God. The blessing, this is from God. You need to talk about the good things that God pours out on your life so that your children, your family can look around and recognize this is from God. This is a blessing, a kindness, a goodness from God. Why? It'll grow their faith. Your family needs to hear about your faith, your experiences in faith, and how God has been faithful to you. Why? Because it teaches them about faith. It teaches them about the nature of God. It teaches them about the character of God. It teaches them, not just by your actions, but by you talking about it and expounding on it, who God is, and then who they can expect God to be for them in their lives. Number 3, your family, your kids, your loved ones, they need to experience grace from your faith. All right, so Peter gets out of the boat, he falls, which, by the way, was like way more of a successful failure than anything I've ever done, right? Like, I mean, he may have fallen, but he still walked on water for a pretty long time. So that's a pretty good failure, right? So he falls, he cries out, Lord, save me. And what happens? Jesus comes in and catches him. What's that? That's grace. Jesus comes in and he teaches him, Peter, you have little faith, right? Why don't you believe? What is that? Jesus teaching him, That's grace. The disciples see all this and they understand, the Bible tells us they understand a little bit more about Jesus as the Son of God. Grace. Then they worship him for what just happened. Grace, right? To worship God, to be in the presence of God through worship. That's grace, right? So in all this, Jesus offers grace, right? You need to, when it comes to your family, your kids, your loved ones, you need to talk about the times and the places where Jesus offers grace. But we also need to remember to offer up grace to others around us, right? Our family need to experience grace because of our relationship with Jesus, right? There's nothing worse than a Christian who has been forgiven of sin, freed of the slavery to death and the grave and hell, who has been given grace upon grace upon grace upon grace upon grace. I mean, I could go on forever, right? And yet refuses to offer grace to those around them, right? And let's be honest, sometimes it's hardest to offer grace to those who are closest to us, those who we love the most. But the truth is, they need grace from us more than anyone, right? We need to let our family, our kids, our loved ones experience grace from us because we have been given grace, right? So let them experience grace from you because there has been so much grace given to you, right? And by the way, when we do offer up grace, when we do teach our kids grace, show them grace, we need to tell them where it comes from, right? We need to tell them what it means. We need to talk about it, that it's what it means to Christianity, to teach them that Christ loves them, that Christ welcomes them home. Like our kids and loved ones need to see that Christianity is a faith filled with grace. That through Christ we are made perfect and acceptable, and that it's nothing but grace, right? Ephesians 2:8-9, for you are saved by grace through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is God's gift, not from works, so that no one can boast. And then it goes on and it says, and you are God's workmanship, right? He did it. And so we need to trust or to teach our family, our kids, our loved ones to trust in the sufficiency of Jesus' grace for them. That he is enough for them, that through grace by faith, they can experience salvation, and that grace continues even in salvation. And that even though we don't deserve it, Christ died for us that we might have salvation. And then the next thing you need to teach them to do is exactly what those disciples did when they experienced all this grace. You need to teach them to worship Jesus because of his grace. Through it all, the disciples see Jesus, they learn more about Jesus, and in the end, they worship Jesus. Nothing teaches faith. Nothing leaves a legacy of faith like pointing to the Savior, the Creator of the world, and worshiping him for who he is.
All right, so maybe walking on water is not as easy as I thought it would be, all right? Maybe I couldn't even fake it well enough for you to believe that I was actually doing it. And here's what I would say is, just like the idea of walking on water, when it comes to your faith, it can't be faked, right? It's not even something that you can fake it well enough for other people to believe, because if you know God, if you experience God, if you have a relationship with God, it's going to change you. It's going to impact you, and it's going to impact people around you. And so if you want to leave a legacy of faith, you got to make sure it's the real deal. Like maybe even with like me on the kayak out there, from far away it looked like maybe I was walking on water, right? And from far away maybe your faith looks good, right? Maybe on Instagram, Facebook, it looks like you've got the real deal. But here's the thing, is the people closest to you, your family, your kids, your spouse, they know when it's fake. And if we're honest, they're the only ones that really matter at the end of the day, aren't they? So fathers, today on Father's Day, love Jesus well. Let your faith be genuine. River Church, Let your family see your faith in your life every single day. Let them hear you talk about your faith, how God's been good to you, how He's healed you, how He's saved you. Let them see grace in your faith, right? Because we've been given grace. Let us abound in grace towards others. River Church, let our faith be genuine, and let us leave a legacy of faith for those who come behind us. I love you, River Church. As always, don't forget about that communication card. Let us know how we can be praying for you, loving on you, serving you. If you're new here with us, please fill one of those digital communication cards out. We'd love to connect with you and get to know you. And don't forget about those awesome resources online at theriverdfw.com where you can worship today with your kids. You can find encouraging articles, and you can worship Jesus through your tithes and offerings today. River Church, I love you. Happy Father's Day. I'll see you soon.